Hello and welcome to Courageous Conversations with Heman Das. The podcast where we sit down with researchers, advocates, and change makers who are doing the hard work. The necessary work of standing up for those whose voices are often left unheard. Today, on the occasion of International Day of Living Together in Peace, I have a truly special guest with me, someone I had a pleasure of meeting in person at the Ambedkar Jayanti at the House of Lords and whose work I have deeply admired. She's the director of Dalit Solidarity Network in the UK and a leading voice in the fight to end caste discrimination in the Britain and beyond. She holds a PhD degree from King's College London and has spent decades at the forefront of advocacy, policy, and the community mobilization of Dalit rights. Please welcome with me Dr. Elizabeth Joy. Miss Joy, it's such a joy, honestly, to have you here. And I really mean that to have you on Courageous Conversation. Welcome. I hope you are doing great. And thank you very much for taking your time off for this conversation. So, before we dive in, I would like to start with you as a person. You have had this remarkable journey from leading a student Christian movement in India to working with the Council for the World's Mission to your PhD at the one of the top institutions at the King's College London, and now directing Dalit Solidarity Network in the UK. Looking back, what was the moment? Perhaps the person that made you say, "This is a work I need to give my life to."
First of all, thank you very much, Heman, for the work that you are doing. It's simply marvelous, incredible. And the courage that you have and all that you bring to the communities is deeply appreciated. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity and especially uh, selecting me to have a conversation on the International Day of Living Together in Peace. For me, as I mentioned, it's very close to my heart, and each word there needs to be expounded on its own credibility because we have lot of questions, lot of insights, and lot of vision and dreams. First of all, to say what we mean by living and how do we make life a little more better for all the people, especially those in the margins. And then how do we live together? And finally, living together in peace makes it complete. But we have a long way to go. And to respond to your question, I can say that I was born and brought up in a Christian family. And my grandfather, my father, my uncle, they were all ordained ministers. Um, my parents had actually 9 children, but 8 living, 6 girls and 2 boys. And we lost our mother at a very early stage in our lives. My eldest sister was 12 years, I was 10, 4, 3.5, 2.5, 1 year, 2 months, 2 days old baby. And my father brought us up with a lot of difficulties because my mother was a government teacher. So that salary was gone. And a priest salary is not a huge salary, but he gave us education. He was very particular that we are brought up in good spiritual life and that we live for everybody. We live and work for communities. So that was instilled from a very young age. And his vision and dream for children was all his 8 children should complete their theological studies, and all his 6 daughters should get married to ordained ministers, irrespective of the different church backgrounds. And that happened. So he had instilled in us the importance of spiritual life that will be shown out, that we can witness it through our service and through our ability to serve communities across borders. So you have already mentioned about my education and my working with different organizations. That is what took me. And if I can say, my master's thesis and my PhD thesis were related to the Dalit theology. Master's, I critically the Dalit theology from the or at least nearly after 2 centuries, I looked into this word, looked into the Hebrew scriptures, and found out that the root word beautiful and the slender branches of the vine or the olive trees. So I took that, the beautiful and the slender, tender branches, and then I took it with the Indian concept and I said, these tender branches can bear fruit when they are with the main branch. And for me, that is Christ. For others, it will be whatever their faith and belief background is. So we can be beautiful and we can also be very productive and bring transformation, change, and uh, create a very different world where we can, of course, live together in peace. I hope I can stop here for your first question. This was
Thank you yeah. Thank you very much for in detailed answer.
journey, and this is what brought me to work with the Dalit Solidarity.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comprehensive answer. And I believe, Ms. Choi, that's the sense of calling, and that's a deep personal why for you, and which really comes through in how the Solidarity Network in the UK frames your work. Which brings me to my next question. Since I'm in Dalit Solidarity Network in the UK carries, I mean, this beautiful, simple but radical vision, a world without caste discrimination. And today we are speaking on the occasion of the International Day of Living Together in Peace, which is observed every year on May 16th. So, in your view, is that a vision, a world without caste discrimination? Essentially, the same thing as a world where communities truly live together in peace? Or is there something important that gets lost where we use broader, softer language like peace instead of naming caste directly?
Now, thank you for your question, Heman. But I would start with the question living together in peace raises the question what sort of peace? How do we define aggression, threatening, stripping people out of their identities, working against human rights? One that is the outcome of bringing justice to all communities, to all people. So for me, it depends on where we stand and our perspective about what peace is all about. So if you are looking for a peace with, you know, oppressive conditions, violence, threat, for me, that will not be peace. And the Dalit issues, the caste system, the discrimination based on the caste system doesn't provide a very cohesive context to talk about peace, living together in peace, unless we try to understand what caste is, what Dalitness is, and how are we going to address the issues and make people feel that they are human beings and Dalit rights are human rights, and then create a world without caste discrimination. And that will lead to the true living together in peace for me. And then, of course, justice calls for a change by addressing the gap between those who express their knowledge, that is, experiences, crying out for justice, and those who hear it but dismiss it with power and authority. So, dismissal, it adds to disadvantage. And diversity and inclusion should not be as a token, but honoring it, making it a reality for the marginalized, makes it true living together in peace. And then the need to listen to fractured identities, look, learn, liaise for justice. Therefore, marginality as the hermeneutical key is important for me. So, marginality becomes a priority. Marginality as priority, I put it as MAP map. That is the map. That should lead us. Marginality as priority. And that will break new paths for living together in peace? I will stop there for this question.
Yeah, to connect the dots, the tension between the visibility and the inclusion you were talking about actually plays out in real policy battles right now in the UK. And that leads to me my next question. Dalit Solid Network hosted a meeting at the House of Lords in September 2025, pushing for the caste to be added as a separate protected category under the Equality Act 2010. You have been at the heart of that lobbying effort and the conversation. So, would you take us to that inside of that room? What does it actually feel like to be making that argument to lawmakers? And how close do you feel you really are to that breakthrough?
To share with you, it is quite an intense journey and quite a difficult journey. First of all, um, when the Equality Act came in 2010, um, we did not have caste included there. And when DSN UK tried to pioneer, along with other organizations like Alliance Against Discrimination of Caste, uh, ACDA, and other organizations, there was a point where the government felt that it would listen and then it will be including caste into that special category for equality. We already have 9, and then we want to add caste also. But then the dominant Hindu groups who are not with us, who want to continue the caste discrimination, be it in India or any part of the world, they stopped that process. And, definitely the political power and the community's power plays its role. And their argument is we don't have any discrimination based on caste in the UK, but we have provided evidence that caste discrimination can be seen in the workplaces, can be seen in the employment sector, in the health sector, where the different communities, specifically from India, work, and in the educational sectors, because students come to UK to study, and any population from India or Asia, when they migrate to any part of the world, they carry caste with them. We say just as they don't forget their pickle bottles, they take this pickle substance, the caste discrimination with them. So it is visible, it is there, but the government at one point said that DSN UK has to prove with cases. And one Chandok versus Turkey case. But uh, even to gather data, it is not easy to gather data because the Dalits will be scared of sharing their experience, and Dalits are always scared to come out and say that their identity is a Dalit identity because already they will be exposed. People, especially from within the Indian communities, will know their community. So they will be having subtle discriminations. If they claim it and if they announce it, it will be a worse life for them. And living together in peace will be deteriorating and de escalating even more. So it is very, very difficult. But we have taken the case to the House of Lords. We now have more number of lords and MPs hearing us and promising us that caste will be included in the Equality Act 2010 UK. So we look forward to that change, and it's not it's not easy, but it is not impossible. Thank you.
Yeah, even I believe that we are not even far away from that. We will keep pushing for that. Uh, taking from your conversation that the legal recognition matters so much because without it, the discrimination remains invisible. And you have actually been building tools to make it visible with your organization, DSN. Which has launched Everyday Casteism portal. Which is a great platform for people to register caste discrimination they have experience in the UK so far. Uh, I really appreciate that idea, which is really powerful, giving people a place to say, this has happened to me. I'm curious to know what kind of stories are coming in and what does it do to a person? Do you think to finally have somewhere to name what they have experienced?
Yeah. As I had mentioned, it is very, very difficult for uh, Dalits who experience discrimination to voice it out. First, first reason can be they will expose themselves to further discrimination because there is no law to protect them now. That is why we are fighting for caste to be included in the Equality Act UK 2010. If that change appears, people know that they are protected by law and they will come up. It will be easier to get more evidences, cases. So this is going on more like, what comes first, egg or the chicken? And should we provide the caste-based approach, or should the law be changed first and then we can change people's mindset? So unless people are protected by law, it's going to be difficult. And only if UK can take a first step, if they protect the Dalits by law, the changes will be seen here because there is caste based discrimination here. We do have people who have shared their experiences. Some of them don't want it to be made public. Some of them, a few of them say, no, it is okay for the sake of getting better lives for Dalits, it can be. But we are campaigning to get more number of cases through this Everyday Casteism project, and the research will begin soon. And when that the research is completed, we will have much more evidence with us to say that we need the law to be changed. And if the law is changed, it can make a difference for people. But it is proved that everyday casteism is experienced by people, not only Dalits, but even other stratified castes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
building on this question, DSN has been working on the issues of caste-based discrimination within the UK business and global supply chains. It also pushes for the caste to be included in the EDI, which is Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Charters in the higher education institutions here in the UK. Which really feels like a very different kind of conversation from what most people expect that because caste is not just about the social and religious issue, it's an economic one. And what resistance do you encounter when you
Yes.
bring this into the boardrooms and universities? This conversation about the caste.
Thank you for this question. because one of the work streams of DSN UK is with the higher educational institutions. As I had mentioned to you earlier, when the students come out in large numbers, and UK is one of the places, and the Asian and the Indian students are at a very high number within the universities. And when they are within the universities, in a very subtle manner, casteism is practiced. The university boards are not aware of it. The professors, even if a student goes and talks about one's experience of being discriminated by students belonging to other castes, the professors are not in a position to understand because they know nothing about how the caste system works. So, what we are saying is include caste into the EDI charter. Within the university charter, where you have EDI, include caste there along with other categories. And then it will be easier to support our request for the government, asking them to include caste in the Equality Act 2010 UK. So it's very difficult for students to approach and get help, and universities do not have proper counseling centers. They will have counseling cells. They will have very best counselors. But if they do not know how caste discrimination operates, we cannot expect more help for the students who go through this discrimination. So, EDI policy, inclusion of EDI within the university charter becomes very important for DSN UK.
Yeah,
And
even
the same, you were also asking about the global supply chain.
yeah.
We do find caste discriminations in the global supply chain. And then that's why the other mainstream of DSN UK's work is business and human rights, where we look at the global supply chain, which uh, is responding. Many of the business companies, especially we work through the Ethical Trading Initiative, and where we come together as NGOs, brands, and trade unions. It is with that we will be able to address caste issue also, and we are trying to do that with the big business companies. We hope all this addressing caste issue from all angles will help us move forward. Thank you.
This is really interesting. I mean, you are fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously, whether it is a policy or law, workplaces, or even the universities. And underpinning all of it is something you have spoken about is the intersection of caste and the freedom of religion. In September, we moderated a webinar on caste and freedom of religious and belief in South Asia, bringing together scholars, activists, and practitioners from across the globe. There is a painful irony here that faith communities, which often speak the loudest about the peace and human dignity, can also be spaces where caste discrimination is deeply enriched. How do you hold the tension? I mean, what does your own faith background brings you? How you approach this work?
Thank you for this very lively and a question that is rooted in all communities, all faiths and beliefs. Uh, Probably I will go straight into a webinar which I attended an hour before our conversation. And it was a webinar on the analysis of the violations of the right to freedom of religion and beliefs in Myanmar after 2021 coup. That reveals that without, the whole conversations that happened there from 2021, how the people of Myanmar have suffered and what is their current status? Why do we have to work together as faith communities? It makes it very clear if we want to live together in peace, there is a lot of work that the freedom of religion or beliefs should come forward and work together. So, the main points, if I can say, from today's webinar, we looked at the destruction of religious buildings and sites there. We looked at the violence against faith leaders and the situation in Rohingya, and then the impact of the earthquake there, and what a lot of suffering the religious minorities had to face. And finally, the illegitimate restrictions of freedom of religion and beliefs practice of non-Buddhists there. This is a very small example. But what it calls us, a nutshell of it, is to introspect ourselves as communities and nations to bring about the reality of living together in peace. What research shows is that when we don't work together in national or international levels and address these issues, we are not only missing out on the information, but we are missing out on the solutions too. Therefore, it becomes very important. Unfortunately, within India, for example, if you take the Christian communities, Christianity was received with the filter which was cast. So, when people converted, the Hindu Brahmins became Brahmin Christians, and the Kshatriya Christians or the Vaishya Christians or the Shudra Christians or the Dalit Christians. To this day, the identity is that. And then we do believe that the church in India is a majority Dalit church, and therefore the church has its responsibility to witness to its faith convictions and address caste system and see that the people at the margins, their issues are addressed and we all are equal in the sight of God. So that needs, otherwise, each religion has to realize that, and working together is very, very important for living together in peace. Otherwise, as I mentioned, we not only lose out on information, because information is very important, it builds our perspective. We can select, organize, and then build our personality. We usually don't look at realities or issues as they are, but we look at them as we are. So we need a change in our mindset. And that change can bring about real transformation. And that is what we look toward. It's not tolerance. It is not just Um, we had looked about living together, inclusion, looking at diversities, all that is there. But finally, it is inclusion with celebration, not inclusion with differentiation. When we come to that level, we will find transformation. And when the transformation occurs within communities, all communities, then that will pave the way for living together in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your detailed and well explained response, which brings me back to the bigger question and probably the last one, which is not just about what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. Miss Joy, you have dedicated over 2 decades to this cause. I mean, you have seen setbacks, slow progress, and the moments of real hope. I mean, you just mentioned that you have spoken about the finding hope in the MPs and minister beginning to say that there should be no one who suffer from a caste discrimination on ground. But I would like to know that on this International Day of Living Together in Peace, what does peace actually look like for Dalit communities living in the UK and coming from different countries?
For me, I would say hope, progress, and a vision for the future should flow out of our understanding present context. And as I had already mentioned, we need to define what peace is and what sort of a peace we are looking for. Is it something that just brings in a calm situation with all the unrest beneath, with all the differentiation, with all the discrimination beneath, where people's lips are locked? We don't want that peace. But look at the present context, and I would say, look at the weight in the present context. And here I put the word weight as an acronym. And in today's context, I would say the W standing for wars and uncertainties, which bring down the quality of life, cost of living, all that have an impact on living together in peace. And then we already mentioned about economic injustice or poverty. That stands for E. And I, impact of climate change that is connected to migration and human trafficking, modern slavery, all these issues. And G in the word weight stands for gender disparity. We are still looking at rules, policies that will enable us to affirm another human being as a human being, not on the basis of discriminating as males, females, or the third gender. We are all created by God in different ways. And how do we bring justice to all these people? How do we bring peace to all these people? And finally, H for hunger for justice and demonstration. All these will bring about transformation of ourselves and the world around us that will be inclusive. So, if we can watch our weight from health perspective, watching weight is very important. From the socio-economic, political, religious perspective, again, being very, very cautious about weight and how to change that. That is wars and uncertainties, economic injustice and poverty, impact of climate change, gender disparity,
Miss Joy, this has been such a rich and meaningful conversation, honestly speaking. And I think everyone listening to this conversation will feel that. And thank you for bringing your honesty, patience, and for the decades of courageous work you continue to do for the Dalit communities, not just in the UK, but across the world. And I only believe that on this International Day of the Living Together in Peace, I think what we have shared today reminds us that peace is not just about the absence of the conflict, it's the presence of justice and it's worth fighting for. To our listeners, thank you for being part of this conversation. Stay connected with the work of Dalit Solidarity Network is doing. Uh, yeah, until next time, keep having the courageous conversations with that courage.
I'm very proud of you, all that you are doing.
Miss Joy, thank you very much for this rich and meaningful conversation.